The harvest gives, the harvest takes. Well, that sounds like a real crop to me. Ha ha! Huh? Huh? R.L. Stine's Pumpkinhead is a Tubi original written and directed by Jem Gerard, or Gerard, however you say that, who's done some films in the past, including a recent Tubi original, Takeout. I did a review of Takeout. You can go to the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist and check that out. And if you were unfamiliar with the name R.L. Stine, you are likely too young to be watching this review. You have to kind of be almost in the dirt like me, because he's done a lot of horror-themed books. He did one for kids, preteens, however you want to label, called Goosebumps, that many, including my sister, really enjoyed, and some of them actually had some really good cover art. And yeah, there were some that were better than others, but it is what it is. I mean, they were entertaining enough. There was even a television series. I think there's even another television series that recently came out. And there have been other movies that have been themed around Goosebumps and stuff like that. And I believe there was one that was released on Hulu. So this is the latest adaptation where it's basically like a Goosebumps book come to life. Kinda. Sorta. That was the intent. There was the intent. And R.L. Stine also did Fear Street, which those books got turned into a Netflix trilogy, and then also Prom Queen, which was terrible. And then he tried to do more adult stuff, same with Christopher Pike. That's right. I know my goddamn, 90s, early 2000s authors that did horror stuff. Actually, Christopher Pike I always felt was a little bit better, but he didn't get quite the recognition. R.L. Stine is good, and some of the Fear Street stuff was good. But Goosebumps, we're themed around Goosebumps here. Even though it really isn't called R.L. Goosebumps, Pumpkinhead, it's not called that. It's a Goosebumps, it's a Goosebumps-themed movie, essentially. So basically, you have two brothers. You have Sam, who not only made the pants too long, but is just going through the growing adolescence as opposed to the shrinking adolescence. Him and his brother Finn Faru, along with their mother, played by Kendra Anderson, who, my word, with respect, hello, she was pretty. But anyway, let's just move on from that. They moved to this idyllic, very quiet farmland-themed town after leaving New York City, because apparently they were tired of that Alicia Keys Jay-Z song, If You Get It, You Get It. And this is due to a tragedy in the family that we find out very little about later on. Sam's having a hard time adjusting, even though he pretty much immediately gets into a friendship with the sheriff's daughter, Bex, tooting turntables and a microphone, Adeline Lowe. And the sheriff is Sheriff Garth. Yes, party on Wayne, party on Garth. Bob Frazier. And he welcomes them to the town. And it's a tradition to go to Palmer's farmland. Palmer, by the way, played by Kevin McNulty. You will recognize him. He's a pretty good character actor. And it turns out that, this town is not so idyllic because there are certain things going on, such as children that are disappearing. And then Finn disappears days before his 18th birthday. And unfortunately, Sam and Bex are the only ones that know what the hell's going on, because everybody else conveniently seems to forget. And they've solved this mystery before everybody else's history. R.L. Stine's Pumpkinhead Tales. Woohoo! This has not to be confused with Pumpkinhead that actually had 4 movies. Yeah, they did 4 Pumpkinhead movies. I don't know why. Maybe I'll retro-review those at some point. But R.L. Stine's Pumpkinhead is basically a Goosebumps book if a Goosebumps book was loosely adapted from the worst Goosebumps book and then drugged through the farmland and the mud and the muck and the blood and the beer and basically drugged through all the manure, and then it was spread about on a goddamn Tubi app. And basically what I'm saying is this movie isn't very good. Are you getting that? This isn't very fucking good. I recognize I'm not the target audience, and I fully understand that, but I have enjoyed some, horror and even other films that are not aimed directly at me. I recognize that, and I recognize that this is probably aimed more towards kids, but I would be insulted by this if I was a kid. And I'm not even knocking Jem as a director, a filmmaker, because I think doing the best they can, say that much. But there's just something about what's going on here that is just not, it's just not fully clicking. The winking at the camera and the self-aware dialogue of, oh, this is where we do this part, this is where we, have this exposition, this is where we do this, that's not funny. That's not funny. And oh, I'm having my big dramatic moment, I'm doing this, and the story is just so basic. There's like 40 minutes of material, and it's stretched out to like almost 90, and it gets insulting after a bit, and also they seem to imply that they want to do a sequel. Are you serious? I mean, why? Why? Why would you imply that? That's not necessarily a spoiler, because you probably can figure out where this thing's going, and the ending is even like, okay, that's it? I mean, alright. Was there a point to this? Is it that actions have consequences? What is the reason behind this? And also, yes, I'm sure that the budget was low and they did the best they could, but there was some really, really, really dodgy CGI. I mean, really fucking dodgy. Like, to where, whew, boy, we really should have done a little bit better job, funding that, Tubi. And Tubi, by the way, is an ad-based streaming service if you're unfamiliar with Tubi. And look, the cast tries. Everybody seems to be having fun. This is still better than the Spirit Halloween movie, which was abysmal. I watched that in theaters because it was a request from multiple viewers. Thank you very much. And this was another one. There was a request from multiple viewers, and I just was so bored by it, and I ended up hating it. And I didn't want to hate it, but I just was so worn down by it. So I'm going to get into spoilers, but this just isn't very good. Maybe if you have little kids, it's not going to scare them. But then that last little bit, the ending might, I don't know who the audience for this is supposed to be. Like, I just don't understand the point of this thing existing. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. The point is to cash in on R.L. Stine's name, but basically this monster looks terrible. The Scarecrow looked terrible. Redhaven, basically, where basically exposition gets smashed over your head. So, if you worship the vegetables will please you. So, after a Scarecrow chases a lad through the goddamn patch, there's a guy here, Palmer, that has a prize pumpkin that is there on this little, pedestal thing. And Sam decides it's a smart thing to do after they just got to this town, and Finn and, the mother are trying to, I think her name is Cassie. I actually don't really remember the character name. I just remember Kendra was very attractive. That's all I remember. Sorry. They're trying to ingratiate themselves. The sheriff is introducing them. Sheriff's really trying to hammer home the whole thing about this town being a slice of heaven. Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, I wonder if you can guess who's behind all this. So, Sam decides the smart thing to do is to axe this pumpkin loose and take it, but the pumpkin starts rotting away. And the Scarecrow starts to come alive and everything, because why the hell not? The mother gets talked to by the sheriff. Sam ends up needing to return the pumpkin, but Finn's like, don't worry, I'll take care of that. And then they play video games with one of these. This system literally looks like it's either a terrible, Super Nintendo classic, like, that kind of stuff, like one of those knockoffs, or it's like one of those, like, retro consoles that you get off of an ad on Facebook. I'm not even knocking if that's what it is, but that's just what it looked like. They lost their dad, so that's why they had to move out there. I assume it could just be because plot device and we can't have anything in New York City. Probably because Tubi didn't want to pay to shoot in New York City. So, they talk a little bit. Finn at one point hears from Sam that he wishes he was the only person in the family. And then Finn ends up getting taken into this whole thing. The pumpkin is shown as a head, because it was a person. So, now nobody has any memory except Bex and Sam. Basically, nobody has any memory of whatever. Why is that? They go find this guy, Rusty, that it turns out actually has more ties to this than you would realize. And he basically ends up showing, or going through all, the exposition. It's a child a year to keep the crops growing near and far wherever you are. And Rusty has his own supplies and everything, because if you eat those vegetables, you end up under the control of this curse. And yeah, there we go. Rusty then decides to help them anyway because they're trying to rescue Finn before the stroke of midnight on All Hallows Eve. And he ends up pretending to be an electrical person or government worker or whatever in a really long and unfunny skit. Really long. But the reason that he's doing that is because Bex and Sam are trying to get into the house. They're trying to get this Necronomicon-style book that has incantation spells that can reverse this whole thing and save Finn before the stroke of midnight. But then the Scarecrow ends up attacking Sam, putting some black sludge and smoke into him, and then suddenly Rusty shows back up after saying he wouldn't come back, and boom, now Rusty is basically helping them out. And the reason that Rusty's doing that is because Rusty is actually Palmer's son. And the first victim was the sister. Oh no, and Palmer doesn't remember anything about this, so you automatically know where they're going. Palmer's not actually the villain, he's just a pawn, which isn't really, he's a Palmer. I'm sorry, it's better than any other joke in this goddamn movie, but I just had to do that. So, nevertheless, basically, you gotta save Finn before midnight. That is something that I hammered home, and something this movie has hammered home quite a bit. So, they show, and I'm not even kidding this, the sheriff stops Bex from going and says, no, Bex, you did this. We're going to spend Halloween here in the house. And Sam goes with her. They're dressed up in costumes. And they even go to look for a horror movie on the Tubi app on their TV. And I killed War of the Worlds for their, for the Amazon product placement. Tubi, come on. We know what fucking channel or streaming service we're watching. You don't need to do that. Are you paying yourself? Are you taking it out of the left pocket and putting it in your right pocket? So, at one point, Rusty confronts his dad, ends up darting him, literally hitting him with a dart to poison him or knock him out. The CGI is abysmal in this. They find out where Finn is, Sam and Bex, that is. The mother doesn't remember any of this stuff. And they basically they find out where Finn is, but they can't get to him yet because they need to get that book. They do eventually get the book while the father and son chat. And, Palmer really doesn't remember any of this stuff because he doesn't see anything on the picture. The memory's been wiped clean. But then suddenly, as things are said, as they read the book, as things go on, they start to remember. Suddenly the spell starts, the clouds are starting to clear and stuff like that. And oh no. So essentially, they have to basically finish this spell. This CGI is terrible is what I know it. And a lot of the rest of this act takes place in a fucking barn. So Finn basically does end up getting freed, kinda, sorta. Sheriff Garth was behind this whole damn thing. We got a storybook thing of Palmer and the kids, and then it turns out actually it was Sheriff Garth that was doing all this stuff because he wanted to save the town because the crops went to shit. He wanted to save this town, I guess, whatever. Needless. I'm glad they explained it, but it's just needless going back to the storybook thing was actually the coolest looking part of this movie. Had they told it like that, one, it probably would have been expensive, but it would have at least looked different. And, the harvest gives and the harvest takes. By the way, watch Strange Harvest. It's a lot better than this. So, basically, Bex ends up handcuffed to the railing and everything, while Sam is being trapped by the vines, while Finn is choking out the sheriff, and the Scarecrow is confronting Palmer, Rusty, and the mother that showed up, because the mother suddenly remembers this stuff. So you gotta save Sam or else the timer's ticking down. And eventually, Bex finishes the spell and saves everybody, except Sam was still trapped by the vines. So now he's kind of in limbo. No, really. That's how the fucking movie ends. It ends with Rusty, him, and Bex just sitting there because they remember him. Just look, I'm not even saying Jem isn't a proper film. And Takeout showed potential, and there are a few movies in the filmography I need to go check out. But this was almost AI slop with how it was made. I'm sorry. This was not good. I got more annoyed as it went on. And okay, I'll give him credit. It was a super happy ending. It was for me because the movie fucking ended. But I digress. So anyway, that is it. F. It gets an F, by the way. So agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rittland, and until we hopefully never confront this Pumpkinhead again. Why was he called Pumpkinhead? It was just a kid turned into a fucking pumpkin. Like that Cinderella joke or whatever, where her diaphragm turned into a pumpkin, and the prince was called Peter something eater. Anyway, I'll see you soon.